Building in Habsalu when 37 children and 2 adults were inside. Many were wheelchair-bound and unable to escape the flames. Estonia will mark the tragedy with a day of mourning on Monday. Iceland's president has called for a new referendum over the $5 billion the country owes to Britain and the Netherlands. New repayment terms have been hammered out following the country's financial collapse and the failure of the Icesave bank 2 years ago. President Olafur Grimsson has called for the new vote after an initial referendum rejected the original terms. More than 50 people have been killed over the past 3 days in the Mexican town of Ciudad Juarez. That's according to officials there, who say 14 people were killed on Thursday, 20 on Friday, and a further 19 on Saturday. Juarez is just across the border from Texas, a frontier that's become a battleground for drug cartels and security forces. And violence continues in other parts of Mexico. A series of attacks on taxis in the western resort city of Acapulco has left 12 people dead. Police say drivers and passengers were among the victims. Taxi drivers have previously been targeted for extortion or recruited by the gangs to transport drugs. Thanks for watching Al Jazeera. A reminder of our top stories now. Pro-reform unrest in Libya has spread to the capital, Tripoli. There are reports that the state TV station has been ransacked and that government buildings are on fire there. This comes just hours after the son of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi appeared on state television warning of civil war. Saif al-Islam says his father will fight attempts to unseat him until, quote, the last man standing. He warned protesters risked igniting a civil war.
We will not give up Libya. We will fight until the last man, the last woman, until the last bit of energy. We will not leave our country to let Al Jazeera laugh at us, Al Arabiya or the BBC or any traitors who live abroad. We will not allow that.
While European Union foreign ministers are expected to condemn the use of force against pro-reform protesters in Libya, that's according to a draft joint statement. The ministers are meeting in Brussels. The joint statement will be considered later this Monday. Yemen's president has just spoken to the media in response to ongoing anti-government protests there. Ali Abdullah Saleh, who's been in power for more than 30 years, said calls for regime change are unacceptable. He said demands for change across the region are, quote, like a contagious disease. Reports from Sudan that the country's president, Omar al-Bashir, will not stand at the next election. That's according to a senior official from the ruling National Congress Party. The next presidential election in Sudan is due in 4 years' time. A suicide car bomber has exploded in Somalia, killing at least 5 people. Police say it went off near one of the training centers in the capital, Mogadishu. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. At least 28 people have been killed in a suicide attack in northern Afghanistan. 32 others were also wounded from the blast that took place outside a government building in the Kunduz province. Many of them were reportedly queuing outside the office waiting to collect their ID cards. An Indian court has upheld the death sentence for the sole surviving gunman of the 2008 Mumbai attacks. Mohammed Ajmal Amir Kasab was found guilty last May for his part in the attacks that killed 166 people and injured 300 others. There'll be more news on Al Jazeera at the top of the hour. Right now, it's People in Power.
Hello everyone, this is People in Power and I'm Summer El-Shahat. On today's programme, blood and dust.
The aim of this helicopter isn't to fix you, it's to keep you alive. And they do that by trying to keep everything working, by treating the body as a container, making sure it doesn't lose more liquids, and if it has lost too much, trying to replace them quickly. Trying to reduce the shock, trying to address pain, and trying to ensure that they contain the body so it can cope by staying alive.
summer, the US plans to start reducing its troop numbers in Afghanistan, a sign many hope that NATO's war against the Taliban will one day end. However, no one is under any illusions that that will happen soon. And in the meanwhile, the number of combatants and civilians killed and wounded is growing. Few people understand what this means in reality better than the medevac personnel who helicopter out across the country to pick up casualties, often under fire themselves. But what is it like aboard one of these units? Veteran freelance cameraman Vaughn Smith spent 2 weeks embedded with the paramedics of the US Army's 214th Aviation Regiment. He came back with footage that reveals both the shocking consequences of war and the remarkable skill, dedication and even-handedness of those providing care. Where we weren't able to get permission to show the faces of the injured, we have obscured their identities. Some of the images you're about to see are deeply disturbing.
He was going into shock, hypovolemic shock, loss of blood. The container was leaking out blood, so to speak, in simple terms. But we sealed the container.